So we've been working on this American Frontier series, and later on this summer we'll be working on some log structures, and we'll need some trees. So today Kyle and I will be cutting down a tree, harvesting the bark for one of those later projects. So here's our tree. We've got a tulip poplar tree here, and tulip poplar is perfect for this sort of project. It's a fairly light wood. It's the lightest of the hardwoods. It's got a really very useful bark. You can use it for all kinds of different things. It's a very easy to work with wood and light enough that we can build, and still works great for this kind of structure. So this tree we have to fell, and there's kind of a hole in the canopy here that we can fell this tree this direction. So we're going to start to cut away on this side, put a mouth in it, get this tree to fall down. Here we go. I'll let you tack that. So the notch is cut pretty well. This is starting to waver around a little bit. So now we can come in on the back side just above this notch, and hopefully it'll fall right where we need it to go. Push. Up. Oh, look out. It's going the wrong way. So there are times when you want it to go one way, but a little gust of wind comes, pushes it just the wrong way at just the wrong time. So it's going the other way, not a big deal. We'll go ahead and get this off of the stump. So actually, rather than taking this down all the way to the ground, as it sits on the stump, it's going to be a lot easier to take the bark off this tree. So we're gonna start to bark or debark this part of the trunk, because this will make it so much easier. Okay, so now we're going to go around. So this is late summer, or actually middle of July. If we wait too much longer, these trees will not peel. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this before the project. We're actually cutting down a lot of trees, almost all the trees we need before, so we can harvest the bark. Because if we wait till fall, we'll have to peel this bark off with a draw knife, and we'll just get tiny slivers. That won't be very useful, and it's a lot more difficult. So as late in the year as we are, it still peels, but it'll crack a little bit more easily. So it'll be hard to get this off in one piece. If it's cracked too much, we might as well take off this as one strip. We can still use it, even though it's a little narrow, but that way it'll get us so we can get in here and get this part off. So now, there we go. So you want to choose the spot where you split the bark over the top of difficulties. If you have knot holes on just on one side of the tree, you'll want the seam to be where those problem spots are, so that it'll be at the very edge of your material instead of in the center of it. And we also have problem spots that we know will be difficult to peel. Whenever we get a spot like this spot where there's a cat face, where there's this healing spot where there was a branch, it'll be more difficult to peel over that, and you have to be more sensitive about how you peel over the top of it. You got to take more time. Now it's time to deal with this bark, and we really need to deal with it right away. If you just leave this bark in this situation, it will start to curl up tighter and tighter and not be useful at all for our project. This is the final product that we're shooting for here. We want a sheet of flat bark. This is a little thinner piece, so it can be a little easier to get the thin stuff to flatten out, but you can see it's sturdy. This is a piece that's dried out in the sun for a week or 2 weeks, but we need to get this bark in that same situation. So depending on the time of year and the thickness of the bark, this can be easier or more difficult. And let's see what happens. You want to be kind of gentle with this and slowly open it up. It will start to crack if we go too fast with it, and this is a late year bark, so it's going to be difficult. But we want to slowly flatten it out. So it's trying to split in a couple of these little places, but you know that's going to be all right. Looks like it's going to split right up the center, but we're gonna deal with that. If we wanted to save it, we would be slower about spreading this out. But let's go ahead, Kyle, and put a heavy log across this section right here. And we got an oak log here that's got some nice weight to it, and we're just going to kind of gentle it into position. We could, if we wanted to really take our time with it, just sort of leave it like this for a little while. Maybe a warm day. We don't want to spread it all the way flat open right away. We want to give it a chance to relax. This is going to fight us a little bit because of this time of year, but let's go ahead and put another log right here, and it'll spread these two pieces out. So we can leave it like this for a couple hours, a half a day. We could open it up the other direction. Sometimes it's a little easier to spread it open with the bark side up instead of down. But if it stays kind of moist, say you're doing this in the late afternoon, you can leave this all night, and you'll come in possibly in the morning, and you'll be able to stretch this a little bit further out. Or maybe the heat of the day will do that. So that's one of those things you'll have to experiment with. It really depends on your humidity and the temperature and the time of year, because it's always going to be different sort of day to day. But as you do it more and more, you'll find that sometimes they're better for you, for your area, or for your let's say weather conditions. But this will spread out, and this will still be very useful, even though the strips might only be that wide. Still very, very useful in this situation, and we'll be able to use this. We can use it as a siding, we can use it as a roofing material, we can use it to, sometimes they made baskets out of it, so very, very useful material. And when we get it in these flat sheets, it'll be a lot easier to work with. We also have to realize that these sheets, even in that flattened state like that, even when it's dried out, that will slowly over time want to go back to its original shape. So it needs to be continue to stay in a spot where it is flattened out, it's got weight on top of it, or maybe it's nailed down, and then it'll kind of stay in that nice flattened state. So there we have it, a simple felling and the stripping of the bark off of these tulip trees. It's not a very difficult process. It is time consuming. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of strength. Thanks, Kyle, for coming along, helping me out with that. This is something that back 200, 250 years ago, somebody on the frontier, they'd be doing this all day long. This is a very common kind of skill, and I'm sure they would have done it so much better than I did it. Of course, for our cabin, we're gonna have to do this just 50 more times. So I'm sure by the end of the 50 trees, I'll be a little bit better at felling trees. I want to thank you guys for all your wonderful support, sharing our videos, supporting us by going to our website, and all the other ways, just watching our videos. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, and thanks for watching.